So, excellent. I think we need to get started. I still see some prominent members of the steering board standing there and perhaps could sit down here in front also. Very good. So, welcome to this session on leveraging national capacities for digital services for the EOSC in Europe. My name is Volker Beckmann. I'm the co-chair of the EOSC steering board. And what we want to achieve today is, of course, when we move forward, we need sustainable infrastructure, we need sustainable services, we need a sustainable EOSC federation. But how to get there? How can we make use, how can we leverage what we have in our countries? How can we leverage also support from the ministries? How should this all work together? And I think my idea of what you might want to take away from this session is that there are very different approaches across the different countries, and that we have to use these different approaches to make things happen, and that there's probably not one fits all approach, and we have to be very careful when we frame EOSC in the future, how we make sure that we make best use of what we have in the different countries, the different approaches, plus what we might get at the European level through the Commission, but also through the countries, and what the role is there of ministries and of the institutional level. So I think we should just start right away. So another topic here is, of course, bottom up versus top down, right? I mean, you as communities, you are very much into this is what we need, this is what we want to do, and then trying to receive the support for that. Countries have very often a strategy, have an agenda, and want to steer this into a certain direction. And this all also has to be considered when we discuss these issues. So I would like to invite on stage Aneta Pacik-Ajbar of the National Science Center of Poland, NCN. The floor is yours, Aneta.
I'm sorry. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Aneta Pacik-Ajbar, and I'm the head of the Open Science team at the National Science Center Poland, which is a research funding organization and a government agency. And I'm very excited to be today here and have this opportunity to present our national node, EOSC node Poland, that we have been developing in as a collaborative effort with other organizations, RPOs, service providers in Poland in the past 12 months. So before I dive into the details, into different aspects related to our node, I would like to provide a short overview of where we started. I mean, of the Polish national research, open science ecosystem, because it shows on the one hand that a lot has been done so far, that there has been an investment provided for open science activities and services, research infrastructures, data infrastructures. Also, we have invested in skills and competences by providing, for instance, massive open online courses that already hit a number of 10,000 users just in 20 months. There has been also made an investment related to infrastructures that started collaborating together in the country and networking. This all started, was highly incentivized after 2015, when Polish National Ministry for Science implemented open access policy. And one by one, new initiatives started popping up, and also they started working together. So basically, what also we have managed to do regarding EOSC, our engagement with EOSC, was to create a network, EOSC Poland network, in 2021, which now is composed by 29 organizations from across the whole country, also ministries involved, research funding organizations, including the agency that funds the medical research, and also the national representatives for European health data space. So this is basically a bigger picture of our landscape. Also, this all led to a situation last year when, as a response to the first wave for candidates node call, we decided to join the forces together and apply as a one candidate node. So here you can see an overview of who we are as a node, as a national node. At the bottom you see 5 logos. These are the logos of the institutions that they together compose the coordination team of the EOSC node Poland. There is National Science Center Poland, which I already mentioned because this is where I'm affiliated with. Then we have the Gdańsk University of Technology, Cyfronet, Institute of Oceanology of Polish Academy of Sciences, and ICM of University of Warsaw. So bringing forces together, we were trying to focus on 5 main objectives, short-term objectives. So on the one hand, it was bringing resources into the EOSC Federation, was to ensure compliance with FAIR principles across all integrated services, provide federated AAI for a seamless user experience, enable open science interoperability across platforms and services integrated with other nodes, and last but definitely not least, impact. To facilitate a cross-border collaboration and efficient resource use for researchers. So when we were trying to figure out how we should structurize our collaboration, we thought that we should base it on a strong community execution, but with a very light central steering. So this is how we see the role of NCN in this broader collaboration. So basically, NCN is responsible for providing an alignment to make sure that we are on the same page and that we can work together towards same goals. But on the other hand, when it comes to the resources that are onboarded and the specific technical aspects, this is distributed among the partners. So we also define the roles and responsibilities. So as already mentioned, NCN is provides lightweight coordination. Then we have the Gdańsk University of Technology that is responsible for cybersecurity and for competences. Cyfronet operates our EOSC.pl gateway. Institute of Oceanology of Polish Academy of Sciences provides expertise, services, and tools in the field of oceans and waters. University of Warsaw has provided us with the resources related to data management. So basically, last year, when we started working together, we focused on mapping the resources and types of resources that we could bring in to the EOSC node. So we thought that our node should not be just an entry gate, a kind of marketplace for data or for resources, but we should make sure that we can make bigger sense out of what we bring in to the system. So I'm not going to go into details about each of the service or product because we don't have much time. Just, I want to underline that there are different types of resources. So on the one hand, with yellow are marked open data and research repositories, and we emphasize that these should be the high quality repositories, ideally certified with recognized certifications such as Core Trust Seal, and this is the case of EOSC.pl node now. Digital infrastructure for research, specialized research tools that is, for instance, digital tissue and cell atlas and the virtual microscope, which is operated by the Gdańsk University of Technology. Then we also think it's very, very important not to focus only on technology, but also on skills and competences. Because if we don't provide such services, then we might not be able to gain the proper base of users. So what we also bring in are the competence center that is operated at the Gdańsk University of Technology and the massive open online courses that were developed by NCN and the ICM of University of Warsaw. And then we have also platforms for open science and core services for resource discovery and access. What is important, these are very well established services and sources. And it means that behind each of them, there is a much bigger community. So for instance, when it comes to the breach of knowledge, this is a repository that connects the universities in Gdańsk. Roadbook connects the universities in Kraków, for instance. And Repot, which is operated by the ICM of University of Warsaw, connects over 60 institutions in Poland. So for us, it's very important to make sure that when we work together, we can also be inclusive and we can provide services for a broader user base. So this is basically what we brought in last year. And when the build-up group was kicked off this year here in Brussels in March, then we started working together on how we can better operationalize, use the resources that we are bringing into the system. So, as I said at the beginning, our approach was that we should not only provide a marketplace, a place where people just come in and they search for services, but also that they can reuse them on spot without the need to leave the environment. So here you can see a quite simple example, because we didn't have much time to work, but I think that we managed to create something efficient. So we connected data sources from 4 repositories, which are certified with Kotra seal, and we connected with one data service, which is normally on a daily basis operated by Cyfronet. So what is One Data? One Data is a service that unifies access to distributed and heterogeneous storage resources. What is important, it also enables teamwork on curated data sets, supports metadata annotation and data discovery, and also facilitates collaborative data sharing across organizations and research teams. So this is what we brought in to create a kind of workflow, but in a broad sense workflow. I'm not going to describe this into detail. Yesterday, Roxana Wilk, she's our technical operations manager, she presented a demo that presents very specifically the next steps that are included in the whole workflow. So basically, as you can see, it reflects what we were trying to achieve, that it provides a streamlined environment where researchers can find the data, they can select the data, then they can choose the environment in which the data should be analyzed based on the integrated environments, then run the analysis with use of the computing that is operated either by Pulsar or HPC that is managed by Cyfronet, and then they can gather the results and publish them as a kind of whole package via RockCreate on EOSC.pl, and then it becomes discoverable on via our search engine as well. So I think I'm perfectly on time. So now I have 3 seconds. No, I'm after time. So now you can see a QR code here. You can use the QR code. It will lead you to our EOSC.pl gateway, where you can see yourselves basically what we have built so far. But I want to also mention that this is just the beginning, and we are very much looking forward to working together within the Federation and with other communities to make sure that we can increase the potential added value for users. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Anita, and thanks so much for being on time also. So, of course, as usual, you go on Slido, you type EOSC Symposium 2025, and you ask your questions there. We don't have questions and answers directly now, but later in the panel discussion, we are going to take your questions if we have time. And after the perspective from Poland, I would like to invite Laurence Seesink. He is the program manager for the Innovation Zone Open Science at SURF in the Netherlands. Laurence, the floor is yours.
Yeah, I work as a program manager for the Innovation Zone Open Science at SURF. And SURF is the National ICT Cooperative of Dutch Education and Research. And we have all universities, medical centers, universities of applied sciences, and a lot of research institutes are the members of SURF. So what we basically do, we share knowledge and coordinate collaboration. We provide IT services. We organize collective purchasing under the best conditions, at least we think, and we innovate. And if you talk about services which we provide for research on a national level, then you can think about the National Supercomputer, we can think about the National Research Network, the National Data Storage, Central Purchase, Central Cybersecurity, and new in our portfolio of services is the National Quantum Computer, and also since a couple of weeks, the National AI Factory. So if we look at the Dutch landscape, then it is really a rich but also fragmented, and from the part of researchers, maybe also a confusing data landscape. And basically this creates also risks of overlap, inefficiency, and missing opportunities for connection and innovation. This information was analyzed during a period around 2020. And based on this analysis, there were also some recommendations. And one of the recommendations was form a national network of all data service providers and repositories, let's say a national open science cloud or a commons, and also form an international hub for the transparent connection with the experience and expertise that is present and built up in European and international context. And also important, there was a letter to the Parliament in 2023, then from one of the ministers, and it was about digital commons. So she pointed out, digital commons, they provide a structure in which public values, democratic decision-making, and technological sovereignty are placed centrally. So this is a little bit the Dutch landscape, but we can also see that there are three areas. So we have the institutional research infrastructures, we have the consortium research infrastructures that are the thematic, domain-specific infrastructures, and we have the European research infrastructures. So then the question is, okay, how to orchestrate then more a collaborative national infrastructure? And the approach that we take is, first of all, we need to have a common language. And as a common language, we use the Global Open Research Commons model. Basically, the blue parts are the services, but you also need to have the human and social elements, the white elements in place to really be enabled to work with these services. Then we also take the workflow perspective. So identify the researcher's needs to understand the specific needs, generic enough to facilitate. Also cover end-to-end concerns like security, scalability, and reproducibility. And identify cross-service institution or discipline challenges. So we also have this fragmented landscape. How can we connect that? Because we don't want to build one monolithical system, but we use the concept of federation to provide seamless access to resources that are decentral. And then you can think indeed about AAI federation, catalog federation, repository federation, and so on. And the last thing is we also need to work on shared services, because generic services that can be shared by multiple consortia and institutes, it can save us costs for building, operating, and maintaining services. So a couple of these shared services we integrated already in our candidate node. So then how are we connecting institutional, consortium, national and European infrastructures? And the EOS Federation, that is a nice framework to accomplish that. So our ambition is supporting research workflows, so the researchers are really central, by connecting data and services through EOS nodes. And then in the middle, that is our nodes, but it needs also to make the connection to Dutch quantum compute, to the Dutch AI factory, but also to the European Research Infrastructure Consortiums, the ERICs, the European data spaces. And how do we tackle that? Because we have a lot of organizations in the Netherlands, so it's really a collaborative approach. So we need to collaborate with research performing and supporting and funding organizations, but also we need to collaborate with the research communities because they can provide us with best practices and support. But also we need to collaborate with the domain-specific research infrastructures and, of course, also with the e-infrastructures. So, organizing the national nodes. We started with really what we think is the easiest part, and that is how can we integrate the technical parts, so the blue parts. That is, at the moment, the EOSC node at SURF. This is what we have now. And where do we want to aim at? We want to go from a SURF node, the Netherlands, we want to go to a national node. And for that, we set up a EOSC node working group, and a couple of relevant stakeholders are present in that. And the task of the work group is to explore scenarios for defining and setting up one or more EOSC nodes, develop a sustainable business model, explore which governance model fits the preferred scenario. And the first step is to think about, indeed, what kind of scenarios can we see? And we can talk about a scenario where we would have one generic node and 3 thematic nodes for natural, engineering sciences, social sciences, humanities, and life sciences and health. But we could also talk about a scenario where we combine the generic and domain-specific elements. And that is at the moment where we need to give an advice about. So we have now the EOSC node SURF. The next thing is to go to a national node, but then we also need to think about the governance structure, the sustainability, and rules of participation and access. And our preferred scenario is that we do that together with the thematic domain-specific organizations. Thank you.
Thank you, Laurence, and sorry for doubting you that you would get through the number of slides in the time allocated. Before we have the next presentation, I remind you that of the Slido, because after the next presentation we will have a moment of interactive activity on Slido to make everybody really being there. So please get your phones or computers ready for that. So, and last but not least, we have the presentation by Pantelis Siveloglu, who is the team leader for the EOSC and Open Science within the, he's the team leader for EOSC in the Open Science and Research Infrastructure Unit with the nice name DG RTD A4.
Thank you very much, Volker. So yes, I was asked to conclude the presentations in this session with this request, how the Commission can help leverage national capacities for EOSC. And I think what we have seen already exposed and demonstrated in this symposium is that, in my view at least, we are already past this perspective whereby the Commission is seen as helping countries, leverage the national capacities, and I think the impressive presentations by Aneta and Lorenz on what is happening in Poland and Netherlands showcase that countries, more and more countries, are very much developing the national capacities. They are even connecting the different players in the country, and this we see as an important effect that that EOSC can play in the countries of coordinating internally, structuring the ecosystem within the different players in the country in terms of data infrastructures, to be able to position themselves as a national contributor to EOSC. Well, that said, what we have already been sending as messages in the past days, and I think I will just mainly reinforce these messages in my presentation here, is that what we have been trying to do in the Commission so far is to have an approach where the cooperation with the countries is not on the Commission helping the countries, but the Commission working with the countries on a joint governance and joint ownership approach. How we have done it so far, this is a slide that was presented by my director on Monday. We have been working on the basis of this tripartite governance, the EOSC Association, the steering board that the Commission set in 2021 to represent the voice of the countries, and us, and we have a number of deliverables already done there. The question is this setup that we currently use and have operated for the last 4 or 5 years, is it fit for purpose for what EOSC is moving in the future? So that is something that we need to discuss. The second point that I would like to highlight is aligning programs and aligning funding. So what we have done on this point so far in 2021, you know very well by now, the EOSC partnership was established. There we brought together different, the EOSC Association and all the voice of the mandate organizations and the members of the EOSC Association to set up a joint program. So this is what you can find in the research agenda of the EOSC partnership. And then what is the EOSC partnership is a co-program partnership. That means that then the Commission goes on our own instruments, the members of the EOSC Association go on their own instruments, and we try to contribute collectively to deliver the objectives of this agenda. From our side, that was Horizon Europe, 490 million euros committed through Horizon Europe for EOSC projects. And from the side of the EOSC Association and its members, it is what we call the in-kind additional activities, which we see in terms of leveraging this kind of funding from the countries is quite significant, 5 times more than what we are providing through Horizon Europe. I have here the number for 2024, I think, that is 340 million only in 2024. So this is how far we managed to go in terms of aligning programming and aligning funding. So there is, EOSC is per se a co-funded initiative. You see the numbers here. How far can a co-program partnership take us in terms of aligning programming and aligning funding is of course something that we see. And then other effects of this work, to some extent, we believe the work that we are doing with the steering board and with the association under the partnership is the move towards adopting open science policies, policies for fair data in the different countries. And we have a tool that monitors how countries are moving in this direction. This is the EOSC Open Science Observatory. It is tracking national policies, practices, and investments in a number of fields relevant for open science, open access, fair data management. And here I highlight an example where we see this positive trend that we can now, after 3 or 4 years of collecting data, can start to capture. The examples I give is on the national policies for open data. We see an increase now. 22 out of the 32 countries that reported to the survey claim that they have a national policy on open data, which is an increase compared to the previous years. And the same for national policy on fair data. So the message here is that through the work that we're doing in EOSC, to some extent we hope there is also a change in the national policy landscape in the countries towards more open science, towards more fair data. And the last point I wanted to raise is the role we hope to play in making the change happen also on the ground, so lowering the barriers for different players, different stakeholders in the countries to be able to engage and contribute to the EOSC Federation. The main message here is, of course, this is not only the Commission doing this work. We support this kind of points that I have included here through Horizon Europe, but not only. The candidate EOSC nodes, they have also done a lot of voluntary work in this direction. There is several national initiatives that are supporting this kind of activity. A lot of voluntary work also from the EOSC Association task forces in developing the technical baselines, in looking into what would be those legal frameworks that would allow us to make the data sharing and reuse cross borders and cross thematic areas. Of course, skill is extremely important. This is something that we have also tried to support from Horizon Europe, and we see also other initiatives coming from the countries. But also, very important, something that we look very carefully in the Commission, the role of ensuring that we keep EOSC as an open initiative and we facilitate the inclusion of thematic areas and of countries that are currently underrepresented in this work. So these are the 3 points I wanted to raise. And one last point, maybe before I close, is a very concrete example of how we can better leverage national resources for EOSC is a topic that we have drafted, and it features in Work Program 27. This is a work program we haven't adopted yet. However, we have already published several months before adoption the draft version of this program, of this topic, so this is something you can see. It is a topic where the Commission, the EU is putting 40 million. It is a so-called program co-fund action, which means that what we expect from this action is funders to come and join and contribute to the activities of this action through a kind of joint calls. So this is the Commission putting 40 million with a 50% funding rate, which means we expect 40 more billion to be leveraged by funders that will be hopefully coming to apply for this call. And the scope is to, one of the points that we are raising and we want to support through this topic is to set up what Michael mentioned also in his presentation earlier, a EOSC Federation-wide mechanism for enabling organizations to offer digital services in the EOSC Federation, to offer these services. So there is also an access component in this topic to offer these services, to provide these services in the EOSC Federation, supported by this topic, and also, and very importantly, to support the enlargement of the EOSC Federation by the expansion of nodes as gateways through which many different organizations can channel their resources to the Federation. So this idea that we have been discussing quite a lot, but it is now starting to emerge of EOSC nodes not being one single organization that provides only their own services and data to the Federation, but play a role of becoming a gravitational point for many different organizations that they are enabled to channel their resources to the Federation through these nodes. So this is a topic that we hope will be able to further support the organizational models that are needed to establish the kind of development of technologies and capacities for making this onboarding happen. All kinds of activities that you need to, in order to make this happen. So what about the future? How can the Commission, so let's turn this question to the future. How can the Commission help leverage national capacities for EOSC after the end of the current Horizon Europe? And there I will use the words of the member states yourselves, where back in early 2025, there was a paper coming from the EOSC Steering Board. I remind this is the place where we hear the voice of the different countries for what concerns EOSC. And there, two main points are highlighted here. Of course, the document has a lot of very relevant recommendations. The first one is to establish a robust governance that brings together member states, association, the community, and the European Union. So this tripartite model that we have been testing, in a sense, so far, to be fully fledged into the model for EOSC post-27. And also, what we are also testing, in a sense, for the first time, with this co-fund topic in 27, is also very much highlighted as an overall approach for EOSC after 2027, to have co-funding and co-financing mechanisms bringing together funding sources, not only from the Commission, but also from the other funders across Europe, from the national funders, to jointly support the development of EOSC. And with that, I would like to close. Thanks, Volker.
So, thank you, Pantelis. Please have a seat. So, before we enter in the panel discussion, please go to Slido. We are going to start with this little brainstorming exercise. So, I think this link we now all know, just to remind me perhaps of the question we asked there first. I think it's about exactly which types of actions at national level provide a strong leverage to advance EOSC. And please think of what in your country works best. May it be committees, may it be special funding programs, may it be creation of a national node, may it be participating in a node. What comes to your mind when you would like to pass a message? So what kind of actions should be launched in countries in order to advance EOSC? So I see political will has to be there. That's definitely true. Funding, yes, but this is always true, right, on each level. So establishment of a national node helps. National EOSC initiatives supported by the ministry. Training, so the skills aspect. Funding is crucial. I got that. Policy support followed by funding. So that makes a lot of sense, I think, that we have to work with the decision makers to have policies in place and then fill them with actions, not only having the policies. Expertise, of course, is necessary, expertise building. Networking, I think that's a very important part also if we want to move forward. Excellent. So we are going to collect this, and I think these are very nice ideas there how to move forward. Okay, so if we go to the next question, that's more easy because you have only, no, there is, exactly. So there, you have 3 choices here. The question is, which statement you agree most with? A stronger national approach to EOSC in the countries is a risk, because, for example, it's more top-down, or because it's difficult then to consider European infrastructures or European collaborations, or it's an opportunity because, of course, it brings in more support. What will you want to do? It brings also the awareness of the decision makers to the EOSC, or it's not going to change much because at the end the support we see is going to be, has a certain volume, and if it goes through a national channel or if it goes rather through European support, it's not going to change much. So, but I think this is very, so we have already 48 there. So most of us see this as an opportunity and not as a threat. I think that's a important message also for the national deciders, or also for the national actors. Also, research performing organizations are, of course, national actors. Thank you very much for that. So let's enter into the podium's discussion. But before I take their questions from the audience, I have myself some questions. So, this question between top-down and bottom-up. I saw in Anita's presentation, okay, you have a very well-coordinated construction of a national node, but who decides what services are in there? Is this a bottom-up process? Is this a collaborative decision? Okay, this is ready to go, but this one we perhaps not have now. How much is this balanced? It looks very top-down to me, but perhaps I'm wrong.
No, it's not top-down. Basically, we are in a rather, I would say, kind of manageable group of institutions. There are like 5 institutions coordinating the node, but definitely we need to have an inclusive approach. So this is something that we are definitely having in mind in the short term. But we are now in a stage where we have the resources that they already proved that they have the value. For the users, they have very, very strong user base. They also have like broader communities in the country behind them. So, and they're also like certified, for instance. So there's a quality. So we identified those organizations, and together we identified those resources that we know that they might bring huge value to broader user base in Europe. So this was our approach. When it comes to be inclusive, then now we are working on figuring out what should be the principles together. And also we do it like in a collaboration with the communities, because we are approached by some organizations, for instance, because they have some interesting services to offer, for instance. So we see together how we can incorporate, onboard them, for instance, to the national nodes. So this is our approach. But as I said, we have a lightweight, light touch coordination, but what is important is the community and the value that the services, the products they can bring. This is what matters here most.
Okay, so it's indeed very bottom-up driven. In the Netherlands with SURF, so you explained what you provide as services. That's all voluntary basis. If you now think of the next step, you said, okay, we reflect on creating a national node. Once this gets significant, how does the model has to change for how you are going to do this? I think it's a question of scale, right?
I think it's not only a question of scale, because the services we already provide, they are at large scale. I think it's more about collective action. And so SURF is a cooperative, and so we act also on behalf of the members. But now we want to go from a SURF node with some national services to really a national node. So including also organizations which are not part of the member base of SURF. And that means that we need to think about what does that mean for the governance? Should we change the governance? But also, should we change the way the services are being funded? And so we started really with to take the approach of a national node, because there's a strong desire also within SURF to integrate our own services better, supporting research workflows, because they are sometimes now also really a silo in itself. And so we have cloud storage, we have an HPC compute, but if you want to bring your data to compute, then it can be a hurdle. So we start also, we can benefit as SURF from integrating all kinds of services. And there we can already see that there also are issues with the internal governance. If we will broaden it to a national level, then we also will encounter other aspects, because what about cross-border access? And so it's, we think that will be our approach, to set up a program for maybe 2 or 3 years with all relevant stakeholders, and then cover case by case, based on research workflows, what is needed for funding, but also engagement and human capacity to support really these kind of research workflows.
But this means a strong commitment by all stakeholders to the EOSC, because it's a strong investment. And then it would mean either a support from your government directly for what you're doing, or it has to come from the institutional resources.
It has to come from both. And so it needs to come from the institutions. So in the Netherlands we have digital competence centers. We also have thematic digital competence centers. They are based at universities and universities of applied sciences and the university medical centers. But we also need, of course, to have the buy-in and collaboration of the ministries, but also of our funding organizations like NWO and ZonMW.
Thanks. Pantelis, you showed us this co-fund action, and when discussing this with S3s and ERICs, one comment is, well, this is very difficult for, how are we going to support, for example, ERICs or S3s who join the federation, who want to provide their services through a co-fund action which might have geographical limitations, right? But if a country pays in there, the country might want to say, okay, this money should then be mainly invested in our country. Do you have an answer to that, to this concern?
Yes, so there are no geographic limitations in the topic itself, right? So and there's no distinction between supporting national nodes or thematic nodes in the topic. So we have approached it in an open way so that there is a lot of flexibility in the consortium to align how the funding should be channeled. Of course, at the same time, we have thought about this point that you raised, and there is a specific provision in the topic that at least 20%, so that is 1/5 of the total budget that will be going towards the joint calls, we have an explicit requirement not having any kind of geographic restrictions, even if the consortium wants to have some kind of geographic restrictions in the joint calls that will be applied. So that, if we're talking about 80 million, 16 million will be will not have any kind of such geographic restrictions. But of course, the question is broader, right? So the question is, if we move towards a co-funded approach for EOSC, to what extent we will be able to support the community, the large community of EOSC, both the national, the thematics, the infrastructure at the European level. And that is a discussion we need to have if we are moving in this approach in the future, to have an open eye on how we organize the funding and what kind of topics and what kind of actions we set up, so that we make sure that all the high quality services and data, wherever they're coming from, find their place in EOSC.
Thanks. Anita, there's a question for you in the Slido, and I invite you to post questions because there are surprisingly few questions. What is the user's uptake of the EOSC PL?
I mean, we have just started operating, so basically now it's not like big amounts, basically, because we are still at demo testing environment. But basically, this is what we are going to do, I mean, very soon. I mean, like, we need to figure out basically when to go into production and to make sure that we can put a lot of effort into also promoting, but also providing specific tailored training to use the resources that are available on the website, on our platform. So for the time being, we are more focusing on testing. So this is our approach before we hit the proper user base.
Thank you. Now I found that I was not connected to the internet, which is kind of a problem.
But this was the question, right? For me.
So there is one question about how you want to enhance usage of the EOSC EU node. So there are 4,000 registered users, but approximately 1 million scientists in Europe. So I think this is a bit of a question rather for Pantelis, right? It's how do we reach all these other scientists, and how do we then serve them?
Yes, well, this was also very much addressed on Monday, I think. So indeed, there is an increase in users in the EU node. We can accommodate more usage, for sure. And that is why there was this presentation, this announcement that the access policy for using services in EOSC is now changing, providing more credits. One major change is changing the number of credits that are provided for researchers to consume these services. I remember the second point was that the file seek and share is actually now basically opt-in once, and then you can have the service provided in the long term. And then there is also a focus on providing bulk number of credits, 40,000 if I remember correctly, to Horizon projects, so attracting also Horizon projects. There is also, we realized that there is also a need internally in the Commission for using the EU node coming from JRC. We have our own in-house research service. So we are also opening to JRC researchers to be able to use this service, and we have seen very positive acceptance, let's say, at first stage to come in and test and try to make use of the services there. So this is steps that we're taking on a step-by-step basis. It is not the first time that we're changing the access policies. We also did it around 6 months ago. We want to leave some time for the access policies to show the effects that they have in the usage of the system. And then, based on the lessons that we learned from these changes, we come forward with another update of the access policy, which is what we did and we announced on Monday. Now, will this be enough? We will see. I think it's important also to communicate that this service is there for researchers to benefit. I'm not sure how much this is passing through to the 1 million researchers. On the other hand, of course, it's not for the EU to serve tomorrow 1 million researchers. These researchers, they already have very well-established platforms that they have been using for many years, and they will continue to use. They don't need to migrate to the EU node. The EU node can find many different types of users that they will find it more useful. I'm thinking, for example, communities that are not well established, that don't have infrastructure well established within themselves, emerging communities, or what we call the long tail of science. I would expect this kind of researchers to be more interested to find and use the services in the EU node rather than those that are well established and have their own infrastructures using for years.
I would also expect that once we have services and data really in the EOS Federation, then we will see a strong uptake. Laurence, you wanted to comment on that?
Yeah, because I think there is also a role of the other nodes to stimulate the use of also the EOS EU node. And I can give one example. That is that we collaborate from SURF also with the digital competence centers. And they ask us, like, there are a lot of researchers who also give education and say, we want to put up a Jupyter notebook and we need to have some compute and storage resources. Well, if you want to do that directly at SURF, then you need to go to an administrative process to get some credits. And what we established now, and I think that's really cool, that is that from the SURF node, you can initiate a Jupyter notebook, run it on the resources of the EOS EU node, so there you can have the credits. And that is indeed not for the researchers with a huge amount of data, but indeed for the long tail of science that works excellently. So I think we can also think about these kinds of research workflows, maybe also a little bit in education, to stimulate this crossover use and over multiple nodes.
I totally agree. Basically this is, I think that's why we are working together in the Federation. Basically also to increase the visibility of the nodes and to make sure that the services and the products that we offer, they can be reused by others. So this is also fits in very well in the concept of the gateways, national gateways to the Federation. So exactly, I think that this is one of the ways how we can support each other and also EOSQ node in this context.
So there's one question also for you, but we can extend it a bit to both of you. So was there a resistance of some organizations, stakeholders in your country to join the effort of serving for EOS? And for SURF, a similar question, is it difficult to get all the relevant partners on board?
These 5 partners that are on board, they are extremely enthusiastic. I mean, personally, I find it incredibly rewarding working with these organizations and with people from these organizations. They have been involved in open science activities for years. They understand EOSC very well. They have been representing the organizations in the EOSC associations. They have been involved in the project. They were actually very, very extremely, I would say, happy to streamline our efforts towards a common goal, because I remember when we started our EOSC PL network in 2021, there was always a discussion. What is EOSC? And basically, what should we do to have the tangible results? And then when the call was announced for the first wave last year, it was like a revelation. Suddenly it became much, much clearer how we can use our expertise, the resources, to provide a bigger impact. So there was incredible enthusiasm. We have been all involved providing in-kind to this process. So, and I really enjoyed, the journey together so far. But on the other hand, yeah, we need to figure out how to make sure that we can be sustainable. So this is another aspect, of course, because the enthusiasm is not something that will suffice and provide long-term operations. But yeah, so there was, on the side of these institutions who are involved in the node, there was no resistance, but there was a very positive, actually, I would say, a very positive response to work together.
Then I have just a follow-up, which is also here. So you would underline this, it's good to move forward with a lot of partners to create a national node?
As I mentioned, we have 5 partners and they understand EOSC very, very well. They were very well prepared to do this role, coordinating role. So I think this is important, that we know what are the common goals and why we are doing this, because otherwise there might be some hurdles, I would say some obstacles that we rather like to avoid at the initial stages of building a node, for instance. So I think that the common understanding of the goals is critical here in this context. But on the other hand, as I said, it's very important for us as a national node to have an inclusive structure. So now we are working on a specific MOU and the status to make sure that we can do both. On the one hand, we can be manageable, we can provide operations, and we can hit the milestones, we can develop the federating capabilities, we can provide value to the federation. But on the other hand, that we are working together with the bigger community in the country and abroad to make sure that they can onboard these services or become a part of the EOSC node as a partner as well. So there will be like different types, models of contributing to our national node, this is what we assume, to make sure that we can really keep this inclusive approach.
There's a question, I think, for Laurence. What do you see as your added value for SURF in building up this national node? What is in it for you?
Well, what is in it for us? Then I need to come back to SURF is not one organization. So SURF is a cooperative. So we work on behalf of our members, and the members, they look indeed at SURF to say, like, if we are building an AI factory, if we are building a quantum compute, we need to have access to data. So it also needs to be in a secure way. It needs to be scalable. And there, our members, then they say, it's not for nothing that we have SURF as a cooperative. Because the other organizations, they are maybe too small to do that, but together we can establish that. And also have what was being raised already, science is, it's not a national activity, so it's a global activity. So make the connections also what is available for data, but also services. That is important, and that is also why we have this approach, starting with we need to have a common language, and that is why we use the digital commons, because that needs to guarantee also inclusivity, and also important that we look at the research workflows. And so we rather, we don't want to speak about services and onboarding services, because for us that are the building blocks to facilitate a research workflow. And that is indeed what also in the Netherlands organizations, that they say, okay, a national node can also facilitate these research workflows over borders with thematic nodes, with infrastructure nodes, and yeah, that is a little bit our approach.
Thank you. Pantelis, a question for you. With all these different approaches in all the different countries, what is the Commission doing in order to make sure that we at the end move forward as a whole? Or what can the Commission do?
So this brings me back to some of the messages that I mentioned in my presentation, right? So first and foremost, it's not only the Commission. If it is only the Commission, then it wouldn't be done right. I think what we need to integrate even further and even deeper is that we are working on equal partnership with the other players in the ecosystem. And in the context of this discussion, that would be the countries and the community. So what we're trying is exactly this, to be able to move forward towards a model where this relation will be formalized in a model for EOSC post-27. We are doing this in practice already, even if the setup is not really an integrated tripartite model. We are implementing it as such. So we have very often the meetings between the steering board, the EOSC Association, us, almost on a bi-weekly basis, so that we make sure that whatever we are developing is developed in a consensual way. And it is true that it's a very complex ecosystem, this I acknowledge, and there are different players and different perspectives and different views of what EOSC should be and how it should move forward. But it's through this approach, I think, of bringing the different players together and working on developing consensus that we can move forward as one. And that's what we have been doing. Now, the next question is, of course, agreeing on a common approach and a common direction is one thing, and then how much we can even align the implementation of this approach. And there, in my view, we have achieved some progress on the basis of the co-program partnership with the association. There we see the limitations of this partnership. For example, the member states are included as observers, so it's not a fully brought-in voice of the member states in the partnership. At the same time, the alignment of funding is done on a basis of setting common objectives and then having different funding instruments working separately to contribute to these objectives. So then the question that comes for the future is, as now we have new ambitions for EOSC and also the EOSC Federation as an operational infrastructure, what are the new requirements for a model that would also enhance the alignment of all this co-funding that is already taking place in the future?
And what is the Commission doing in order to help the less resourceful countries? I could see that we built up another gap again, right? We have countries which are very engaged, which create national nodes, which contribute with a lot of knowledge and also help their own communities to get organized. What is the Commission's message of help for less resourceful countries?
Yes, so let's take the example of building the EOSC Federation. So this is the approach that we followed, and of course it was not only the Commission. This was something that was agreed at the tripartite level, but for sure this was also our encouragement for how to move forward. When we started discussing how we should approach the building of the EOSC Federation and how we will bring in different nodes, we said that inclusivity has to be a key underlying principle. And this was a basis under which we identified the first wave, again in the tripartite level. And this is also being transposed and reflected in the criteria for the second wave, where we say that countries that have already found a place in the current build-up phase of this federation, we want to give priority to those countries that have not found their place yet. We want to give priority to those thematic areas that are not already represented, to be able to have more players included that are currently underrepresented. So that is how we are doing this on the context of the EOSC Federation. On the context of Horizon Europe, I mentioned for what concerns our topics in 26-27, you will find specific and explicit references to ensuring the inclusion of underrepresented communities, both thematic and geographic, both in the topic that I said a few words about, which is the topic in 2027, the program co-fund action, but also in the other parts of the work program. I highlight specifically a big topic that is in the 26 work program. It is a topic that uses also the model of cascading grants that we have used successfully also in the past. Again, there you will see references in the topic that we want to make sure that underrepresented thematic and geographic communities are adequately finding the way to provide resources to EOSC.
Thank you. So if you are promised to be quick, then each of you gets one takeaway statement. Aneta, I give you the floor. Maximum 1 minute.
Basically, I would like to maybe convey to everyone who's interested to join the Federation in the second wave, do it. It's really fun. No, but it's a really great journey, and I think that it's an incredible opportunity for networking, collaborating, not only nationally, but also with thematic nodes and with other national nodes. So I really think this was a great experience, and I'm very happy that we are included. So please be fast and furious.
Thank you, Aneta. Laurence?
Yeah, I agree with that totally. So if I look back at the last couple of months, then I think the work we did, we already were doing for a couple of years. And so it's not new stuff we do, but it is doing it together with others. And that is really exciting. It is also we learn by doing. And it is indeed, it's also fun to do.
Thank you. There's a not so good, for the discipline, not such a good message here. Panel discussion, you can use 5 more minutes. Other sessions are late. So Pantelis, you have a bit more than your 1 minute.
We have heard many takeaway messages already, so let me add mine. Not much to say really. I was just, as I was presenting these slides that I gave, I was already reflecting. I prepared them last week before EOSC Symposium, and now they already feel outdated. The way that EOSC is moving and the kind of messages that were passed, and in this symposium, I can feel how and the things that I learned by participating in the different sessions, I see that we are moving faster than we can even absorb, and sometimes, or we can even be able to grasp. So this is an incredible amount of work that has been taking place, and I can only just hope that we continue in this pace. And if this is happening, again, linking to the broader discussion of how EOSC should be framed after the end of the current financial framework, again, a plea to everybody to advocate for a strong EOSC towards whoever is that is making decisions on funding, on supporting initiatives in the future, your ministries, your national stakeholders, to advocate again for a strong EOSC now and in the future.
Thank you very much. So let's thank Aneta, Laurence, and Pantelis again. And with that, we have 5 unused minutes, which you can use to check your emails. But you don't leave the room, because afterwards we just continue directly here. Thank you.